Young people aren't just unhappy, they're despairing. That's according to new data, which has found younger generations are more likely to be miserable.
I feel lost. I'm 22 years old and I don't know what I'm doing.
Life has gotten to the point where I'm just living. I'm not stressed, I'm not depressed, but I'm just living.
Time keeps moving, but every day feels the same. I think I'm growing, but somehow I still feel stuck.
I'm 23 years old, I've got so much time, but it just doesn't feel like it.
We're living through a meaning crisis, and young people seem to be carrying the weight of it. And the result is rising emptiness, anxiety, hopelessness, and a generation that's struggling to answer the question, what's the point of all this?
We're so enamored and amazed by the things that are on our phones, but we fail to look up and see the life that's in front of us happening before us.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
It's not just you. Pretty much everyone in Gen Z is raw dogging adulthood right now, collectively looking around thinking, what exactly are we doing here?
Are you okay, sir?
I didn't sign up for this. You guys are young, that's great. You want to give back to society? I've done that. I need to take.
And sure, part of that comes from the fact that the old roadmap to a fulfilling life doesn't really exist anymore. The whole white picket fence American dream unfortunately died somewhere between Gen X and millennials. But that's not the whole story, because the truth is, happiness isn't automatically unlocked with a house in the suburbs, 2.5 kids, and a golden retriever named Max. So why are we feeling so lost?
So I'm just supposed to sit here for 40 hours a week for the next 45 years of my life?
Well, it's not for a lack of trying to live well-rounded lives. As we know, it has never been more popular to run a marathon, and yet even after setting and accomplishing meaningful goals, many people still feel this lingering sense of emptiness afterward. At the end of the day, there's clearly something else causing this. So that's what we're going to try and get to the bottom of today, why there's this unanimous feeling like life is slipping through our fingers, and how Gen Z ended up constantly moving yet never fully arriving. So to start, there's been a lot of speculation about why Gen Z feels so lost in the world. The usual culprits include ongoing global conflicts, an unstable economy, and the digital world constantly rewriting the rules of life. All very real reasons as to why Gen Z doesn't have a clear vision of their path in life. But like I said in the intro, I think there's more going on here than these external influences holding Gen Z back. Because while yes, the world around them is crumbling, the way their day-to-day life plays out often feels just as unstable. Because Gen Z is missing something less obvious that normally grounds people in their everyday life, that being rituals. Which, stay with me, I'm not talking about ancient ceremonies involving sacrificing a goat under the blood moon, rather repeated small experiences that make life feel structured and emotionally grounded.
I have never been somebody who thrives in the chaos of my personal life. At work, I think the chaos really sharpens me and I feel clear and competent and alive, but at home, chaos feels like I am completely unraveling. I used to think that was just who I was, and what I've learned is that I don't need more discipline. I don't need like another app or a to-do list. I need ritual.
Because while we rarely stop to think about it, rituals are one of the foundational building blocks of the human experience. Long before technology, governments, written language, or even organized religion, humans were already gathering around fires, mourning losses, singing together, marking seasons, and celebrating births. And while many of these actions may not seem particularly remarkable, they all embody repeated symbolic actions that help humans make sense of their existence.
If you ever wonder why your life feels like it sucks, it's because you haven't attached any meaning to it. Let me cook. At its core, spirituality is believing in something bigger than yourself. Wait, we automatically think that it has to be faith, but spirituality and religion are not the same thing. It could be your values, your community, your family, your purpose, or how you show up in the world. And spiritual rest is what happens when your life is aligned with what actually matters to you.
These rituals give life structure, rhythm, and continuity, often acting like the scaffolding of life itself. Because how else do humans make sense of something as devastating as the death of a loved one other than through rituals? Funerals, gatherings, mourning practices, shared meals, ceremonies, all give people a framework to process chaos, grief, and emotional turmoil. And without those frameworks, people are often left wandering emotionally untethered, struggling to make sense of the world around them.
Hi, I'm JC, I'm 24, and I can quite honestly say that I feel empty. I try a lot of things, but nothing is my thing. Time keeps moving, but every day feels the same. I think I'm growing, but somehow I still feel stuck. I wake up, I eat, I work, I sleep, and I repeat. There's just nothing that makes me.
As said in the book, The Disappearance of Rituals, we can define rituals as symbolic techniques of making oneself at home in the world. They transform being in the world into being at home. They turn the world into a reliable place. They are to time what home is to space. They render time palatable. Without them, society becomes atomized. Rituals and ceremonies are the genuine human acts which allow life to appear to be an enchanting, celebratory affair. Their disappearance desecrates and profanes, transforming life into mere survival. And the thing is, rituals aren't just in these big moments in life, but these small moments in the day-to-day, like how you make your coffee every morning and sit by the window drinking it, or more realistically, drinking it on your way to work, how you make pancakes every Saturday morning, go out with your friends on Thursday nights. It's the rhythms of day-to-day life that make you feel grounded. So what does this have to do with Gen Z? Well, in a lot of ways, many of the rituals that naturally emerge during early adulthood have been either delayed, digitized, or erased completely.
What's wrong with you? I have no form of routine going on, and every time I try to implement a routine, I then get overwhelmed and then I just kind of drop it or something else takes precedent and I feel very out of control.
Because just as Gen Z was entering adulthood, COVID hit, forcing people into isolation and permanently disrupting the formation of the traditions and routines that they would take with them through life. As we know, graduation ceremonies vanished, universities went online, first jobs happened through Zoom, dating got transferred to apps, house parties disappeared, and overall public gathering spaces shut down. Even the most casual of rituals, like grabbing coffee with other classmates after lectures, wandering malls, or small talk by the water cooler with coworkers, all gone. Again, while this might seem trivial, those are the building blocks to the routines that we take with us through the rest of our life. And if you're in doubt, just ask any Gen Xer or Boomer how much COVID changed their current lives, and most of them will say that it didn't at all. Because after social distancing subsided, their lives just went back to normal. They went back to the office, their Monday night book clubs started meeting up again, and every Saturday you could catch them on the golf course. They just slipped back into the familiar rhythms and routines that they had spent decades building. Gen Z, however, didn't have anything to go back to on the other side of the pandemic, because the last time the world was normal, many of them were still children or at least young adults in the midst of still finding themselves. They hadn't yet built stable routines, social circles, traditions, or a grounded sense of adulthood before hit the fan.
I don't think enough of us are honest with ourselves about how much we're missing structure in our lives. When we were younger, that structure was provided by our teachers, our parents, our administrators, people that would remind us to go get our doctor's appointments done, to make sure that we're doing our homework, things like that. But as you enter your 20s, you're finally independent. I think a lot of us assume that those gaps that were previously filled by, again, our parents, our teachers, gets automatically filled by something internally, but that's not the case. You have to proactively reach out and figure out how to provide that structure in your life.
As said here, in today's fast-paced, highly urbanized world, rituals have become increasingly rare. City life is often centered on individualism, personal ambition, and convenience, leaving less time for the communal gatherings and traditions that once sustained social bonds. As a result, the sense of belonging and stability that rituals provide has diminished. So now a lot of Gen Z is left floating through life feeling untethered, simply taking things one day at a time as the years blur together. We see this in the way maintaining friendships has become difficult because there's no built-in repeated gatherings keeping people connected naturally, the heightened social anxiety because people lost those years of casual in-person interaction during these formative times, as well feeling like time moves strangely fast because there are fewer meaningful events and rituals marking the passage of life, not to mention the overdependence on algorithms that dictate our identity, and just the increased feelings of emotional numbness because life lacks contrast. Rituals give form to the essential transitions of life. They are forms of closure. Without them, we slip through. Thus, we age without growing old, or we remain infantile consumers who never become adults. The discontinuity of autonomous time gives way to the continuity of production and consumption. Rites of passage give structure to life in the same way seasons do. Whoever passes a certain threshold has concluded a phase of life and enters into a new one. Thresholds as transitions give a rhythm to articulate and even narrate space and time. They make possible a deep experience of order. I will be referring to the disappearance of rituals a lot in this video, as it was a really eye-opening book to read and I would highly recommend. But moving on, I also think that this is a big reason why we're seeing such a strong return to religion among young people. As seen here, for the first time in decades, young adults, Gen Z and millennials are now the most regular churchgoers, outpacing older generations who once formed the backbone of church attendance. Because when people feel lost in the world, a connection to something bigger than ourselves can bring a sense of peace that they're looking for. And there's no place with more guardrails and do's and don'ts than religion. As we know, religion is deeply built around repeated symbolic practices that tell people how to structure life emotionally, socially, and spiritually. And what's interesting is that even though people don't necessarily want the authority or restrictions of these older institutions, they're willing to accept it for the emotional grounding they provide. Because in doing so, they get a very clear framework of tangible ways to navigate an increasingly overwhelming world through weekly services, holiday traditions, and rituals surrounding birth, death, marriage, coming of age, grief, crisis, joy, name it, there's a ritual for it. I actually found this specific article really interesting in my research for this video. It's called Rituals, Routines, and Reclaiming Meaning Without Religion. In it, they share this tension of no longer wanting the authority of religion, but still deeply missing the structure they offered. Said here, there's a strange ache that often comes with walking away from religion, even when it was harmful, even when it hurt. You might not miss the rules or the guilt or the sermons, but you might miss something else. Maybe it was the predictability of Sunday morning or the shared songs. Maybe it was knowing what to do when life got overwhelming. You could say a prayer or go to a gathering. And for a lot of us, when we leave, we're not just leaving belief systems or institutions. We're also leaving the container that gave our days, seasons, and our struggles a sense of structure and rhythm. I just found that really reflective of the growing sentiment of this younger generation, that people are searching for something to anchor themselves to again. But of course, not everyone is turning to religion to stifle the feelings of a fragmented life. No, many of them are doing just fine on the surface because they've mastered the art of distracting themselves from feeling anything.
You can all judge me if you want, but I do not care. I have never, ever been happier.
Question for you. Have you ever tried Googling your name? It can be a very humbling experience because even if you're mainly just a consumer on the internet and never really share much of yourself, somehow your personal information can still end up splattered all over the web. Things like your name, address, phone number, education history, and sometimes even more concerning information like financial details or government IDs can all end up floating around the internet. And that's scary because all of it can make you a target for scams, spam, or even identity theft. And I don't know about you, but scams are getting way too convincing these days. So much so that I am suspicious of anyone I don't know who's calling me. Just the other month, my bank called asking to verify my identity, and I was like, how about you prove your identity to me first? Because that's just the reality of life these days. But here's where today's sponsor, Incogni, has your back, as they can easily remove your information and data online from data brokers and people search sites. As their slogan says, they can't hurt you if they can't find you. Incogni has even expanded their services with their new custom removals on their unlimited plan. This now allows you to submit an unlimited number of links to websites where your information appears, and their team will take care of it even if it isn't a part of their automated removal network. So you don't have to chase down any companies or do any of the follow-up. You just sign up and let Incogni handle it. As well, Incogni is the first and only personal data removal service that has been independently verified by Deloitte, meaning an outside third party has verified that Incogni actually removes personal data from hundreds of data broker sites and private databases. Take your personal data back with Incogni using code EMBERS at the link in the description, and you will get 60% off an annual plan. That is incogni.com/embers. So what is Gen Z doing with their time if not falling into the rhythms of rituals? Well, from what I can see, they're doing the most. By that, I mean, there's a lot of dopamine chasing going on to numb the pain. We see it everywhere, from the doom scrolling epidemic to the obsession with over-optimizing every aspect of life, not to mention the massive rise in gambling among young people these days. Overall, it's become incredibly common to spend so much time chasing highs, stimulation, and instant gratification.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do nothing, but I'm a dopamine junkie. Like, I don't know what it is. Dopamine is my drug. I always have to have something new and exciting and crazy going on in my life. Otherwise, I don't feel fulfilled.
To the point that we now live caught between these two forces perpetually pulling us in opposite directions. We are either overextending ourselves and placing unrealistic expectations on our lives, or completely checking out, retreating to distraction. I like to call this the highlight reelification of life, where the constant exposure to other people's curated experiences creates the feeling that we should always be doing more, achieving more, optimizing more, or living more exciting lives than we currently are.
Look, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you don't feel behind in life because you're lazy or unmotivated. You feel behind in life because you are being constantly fed everyone else's highlight reels, everyone else's wins every single day. And just think about it for a second. You wake up and first thing you see is this person getting promoted at their job, this person getting into their dream school, this person getting engaged, this person buying a house, this other person traveling around the world. And it might feel like everyone else and their mom is reaching a new milestone except for you.
And as a result, we're always rushing towards the end of a tunnel that never comes. Because every time you think you're finally about to arrive, whether it's the job, the apartment, the relationship, the body, the followers, the routines, the vacations, the aesthetic life, the tunnel just ends up extending further ahead again. And eventually we crash out from the weight of it all, giving into easy dopamine wherever we can find it to cope with never being able to arrive. This article notes, every time life gets overwhelming, we retreat from our problems pretending that they aren't happening. We distract ourselves so much that it turns into detachment. Nothing feels real or familiar. Even when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're unable to recognize the person who's looking back at you. It's terrifying. All day and night, we're in our heads. Even when we're almost done with the shower, we question ourselves if we have actually washed our hair or not. Sometimes we spend the day so wrapped up with work that we forget to eat. You have to force yourself to be normal, but you don't even know what normal is anymore. And that leads us to the conversation of rest and how we don't know how to chill. Because, say it with me, we live in a capitalist society where rest has been villainized as we're constantly pressured to be productive. And when we aren't, we label it as wasting time.
I'm sure others can relate to this, but I don't know what is wrong with me, but I'm just uncomfortable just chilling. Like, I cannot sit for more than 10 minutes without doing something.
As a result, rest can no longer simply exist as something inherently valuable on its own. Instead, it's framed as a tool to become productive again. Back to the book, The Disappearance of Rituals. If rest becomes a form of recovery from work, as is the case today, it loses its specific ontological value. It no longer represents an independent, higher form of existence and degenerates into a derivative of work. What must be won back is contemplative rest. If life is deprived of all its contemplative elements, we become suffocated by our own activity. That is a quote that I've actually been holding on to for the past few months of we need to chill out, guys. Because rest brings closure. It's a break between events where we can reflect, process, and remember. If we only ever go from one thing to the next, we're losing out on the opportunity to contemplate our life and absorb our experiences. And so I ask you, when was the last time you looked longingly out a window or laid in the grass and stared at the clouds without listening to a podcast? These moments aren't wasted, but a vital part of the human experience. In a 2019 study of writers and physicists, a fifth of their most significant and creative ideas were formed during periods of mind wandering. That is, when engaged with an activity other than work. The ideas that occurred during these break periods were also more likely to assist the professional in overcoming an impasse on a problem than if the idea had occurred while working. And with that, I hate to say it, but a lot of us are so deeply embedded in the system that we're addicted to productivity. Yes, a very interesting addiction indeed, because in a world that constantly rewards long hours, endless self-optimization, and going above and beyond, exhaustion itself has almost become a badge of honor.
Oh, you're tired. Spare me. I got an hour of sleep last night. How are you as a grown man gonna be asleep? Life's all peaches and cream, isn't it? You look like a bitch. I don't even blink. It's a gateway drug. You when something goes bump in the night.
But it is true, as Dr. Sandra Chapman says, the brain can become addicted to productivity just as it can to more familiar sources of addiction, such as drugs, gambling, eating, or shopping.
My hobby is productivity. Like, if you were to ask Sarah, what do you do when you get off work? I'm like, I clean, or I'll find something to organize, or like I'll have to be working on like some home improvement project, or right now a lot of it's wedding things. Like, it's always getting things done, and if I'm not getting something done, I think that my world's gonna crumble or something.
The thing is, people don't recognize productivity as an addiction because most of the time we have so much to show for it, right? The academic recognition, the validation from others, the promotions, and the overall financial success. Meanwhile, the damage often goes unnoticed, like the anxiety, the emotional numbness, and even the neglect of your loved ones. Also named hurry sickness, it describes a chronic feeling of urgency and the compulsion need to rush through life. People experiencing hurry sickness often find themselves constantly pressed for time, leading to a pattern of frantic behavior, multitasking, and frequently checking the clock. And listen, who can blame them, right? In a world that constantly feels like it's leaving us behind, there's always something to do, something to improve on, and always another goal to chase. So it's not hard to become consumed by the pursuit of one change that will finally make you feel like you've made it. If you've seen the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, then you're probably familiar with this idea. First of all, great film, but it touches on these themes in a really interesting way. If you haven't seen it, it's basically about multiple universes all connecting at once and threatening to collapse reality. But within that, it's a story of a middle-aged woman who is overwhelmed and unsatisfied with the direction her life took. She's overburdened with her struggling family-run laundromat, on top of being emotionally disconnected from her family members. But how the multiverse plays into this is that it gives her the opportunity to explore other lives that she could have lived. But the thing is, this quickly becomes extremely chaotic and absurd. I personally could have done without the hot dog fingers. But underneath all that insanity, the movie really exposes what it feels like to exist in a world with too many possibilities, too many identities, and too much information, leading to no clear sense of a meaning anymore. By the end, including the rock scene, which I think was the most impactful, but she realizes that the constant obsessing over all the alternate versions of herself was preventing her from actually being present in the life she had.
Maybe there is something out there, some new discovery that will make us feel like even small pieces of something that explains why, no matter what, I still want to be here with you.
And I think that there is no better reflection of the current hyper-connected world that we live in, where we're exposed to so many possible versions of our lives that we either become paralyzed trying to choose a path or end up eternally dissatisfied with the one we did choose. Every scroll presents another possible version of who we could be in the endless lifestyles, opinions, aesthetics, cities, relationships, and careers, to the point where we can't help but feel like we're always chasing something. Because it's really not normal to be watching a 24-year-old drinking cappuccinos in Italy, all the while you're drinking Nespresso on your coffee break at work. But now all of a sudden your Nespresso isn't good enough.
But why does no one warn you that life after uni is so confusing? It's like the first time in 5 years that I don't know what I'm doing next. And it's like, I'm telling myself, like, I'm 23 years old, it's fine, I'm 23 years old, like, I've got so much time, but it just doesn't feel like it. Like, I feel like everyone else I know just is getting their life together. I just feel like everyone else has their life together.
The problem with that, besides making us feel is that we've started measuring the value of our lives based on how many aesthetically pleasing main character moments we experience, rather than the ordinary day-to-day moments that actually make up the majority of human life.
I think we all tend to forget from time to time is that life is made up of all the in-between moments and small moments. When I've noticed that I've been the happiest version of myself, it's when I am actively noticing and appreciating all the small moments throughout my day, like doing laundry or driving and getting to see the sunset or listening to my favorite song while I'm driving. saying hi to someone when I'm walking on the street and like getting a good vibe from them. Like all those little tiny things that we don't really think much of is actually what makes up most of life.
I have another book recommendation for you that is Ongoingness, which again, highly recommend. It's a short memoir of a woman who kept an obsessive diary for decades because she was terrified of time disappearing and life slipping away, going unnoticed. But in this one entry, she shares, "In my diary, I recorded what had changed since the previous day. But sometimes I wondered, what if I recorded only what hadn't changed? Weather still fair, cat still sweet, cook oats in same pot, continue reading same book, make bed in same way, put on same blue jeans, water garden in same order. Would that be a better, truer record?" And that is just the meat and potatoes here, that the in-between moments of life are what make up our life, and we should be focusing on improving that aspect of our lives rather than constantly rebranding ourselves. Again, while it's obviously good to have goals and dreams, we can't dismiss the importance of novelty in life. Those aspirations don't define us. It's the quiet mornings, the conversations over dinner, the walks, the laughter with friends, the small talk over the fence with the neighbor, and the book that we read for the 100th time to our kids at night. Those moments bring feelings of familiarity and comfort within the everyday. Okay, so what is one to do about all of this? Because we're definitely not too far gone. And I know this because we're already seeing the cultural tides shift as people grow increasingly aware of our disconnected world. Nowhere has this been clearer than with the analog bag trend. If you haven't heard of an analog bag, the term was coined by content creator Sierra Campbell, and it's essentially just a bag filled with screen-free hands-on activities designed to combat digital dependency and reduce screen time. Things like watercolors, knitting projects, books, journals, even MP3 players, anything to keep you busy while you're out and about in the world instead of relying on your phone for every idle moment.
This is my analog bag. I can just carry with me from room to room and pick up instead of just mindlessly scrolling on my phone. First of all, little catalog to thumb through. It really is kind of like the original scrolling is just so fun.
And the cool thing is that it's actually gotten so popular that it's making an impact on stationery sales. As in the last 6 months alone, the Michaels site saw a 136% increase in search on these exact activities. Now, to be clear, the analog bag trend has faced its fair share of criticism. Many claim that this is just another flavor of consumerism and an excuse to go out and buy a bunch of junk that you'll use once before it ends up in the landfill.
But the idea of creating this bag was full of items that people are selling you to also buy. Hello, please buy this notebook, please buy this hand cream, please buy this exact tote bag to put all of your shit in that you're gonna do when you don't scroll.
Anyway, here's my analog bag. This is my journal. It is so adorable. It is clearly Totoro themed, and I use it as kind of like a daily scrapbook. I have a photo printer that I use to put pictures in here, which is really cool because it helps me document the small moments in life that aren't significant enough to make it into a photo book. So that's that. I also have my pastels, which there's only 2 things in here. It's just journal and pastels. Do I dare show you a picture? Maybe from far away. A mourning dove moved into our neighborhood, and so I drew one. That's that. Okay, so clearly I am in support of the analog bag trend, and I disagree with these consumerism allegations. I personally think that it's overall a positive movement when done right. Obviously, you're gonna have people who do it wrong and, waste product and overconsume and such. But at the same time, like, to do stuff, you do need to buy things. And I don't think that's a crime. Ideally, if you already have craft materials, you would use those and just find a reusable bag that you already have. But if you don't have those things, then yeah, go out and buy the supplies that you need. Especially when the alternative is just scrolling your life away. This is a better option. I also think that there are more intentional ways of going about this. Like, instead of buying all your supplies off Amazon, try finding a local art supply or used media store. I got all my supplies at a local art store, and so I feel good about my purchases. For me, this trend is just one step in the right direction of reintroducing rituals in people's lives, and if nothing else, offering a small sense of grounding in an increasingly overstimulating world. Because while it doesn't solve the lack of communal rituals, it does create personal ones for you. With that, a lot of hobbies force you to slow down and sit in the moment. I know personally, both my journaling and drawing help me think through life and process events, even if that's not not my intention going into it. It just feels like a moment of silence amidst the perpetual noise of our modern life. Again, another quote from the Disappearance of Rituals. They say, beneath the old wild pear tree, silence rules because everything has already been told. Going a little bit deeper, I want to give journaling a moment here because I used to be so against it before I realized that it doesn't have to be that serious. What I mean is that whenever I would hear someone talk about journaling, it was always a way of like coping with bad things going on in life. Like you're faced with a hardship, someone would say, well, have you tried journaling about it? And obviously that's a good thing to do, but it just put a bad taste in my mouth that journaling always had to be this really heavy emotional thing, and it doesn't have to be that. In fact, journaling can be whatever you'd like. For me, like I said, it's just a way to reflect on the day, and I get to make a pretty little scrapbook out of it with the pictures, and I have a bunch of stickers to use, and it just makes me feel like I'm not missing my life. Something I heard before is that when we put thoughts to paper, they go from being abstract ideas to something woven into our identity.
Do you think before you speak? Because you answer questions so quickly and so comprehensively.
I think overall, I'm just a pensive person. Like and it's not a bad place to be. I journal a lot. I break down all of my thought processes. I think I apply a very analytical lens to my own thinking, and I kind of modify it because it's so interesting. You can control what you think. Like, you can control how you think, and therefore you can control who you are.
Back to ongoingness. This video is just an advertisement for these books. But Sarah says, the diary was my defense against waking up at the end of my life and realizing I had missed it. I also keep thinking about the tradition of sending off ships. For the life of me, I can't remember where I heard this. It was probably a YouTube video, but someone was talking about how people back in the day would gather around at the dock just to wave at departing ships. Like, that's how slow-paced life used to be, where your whole evening plan was just standing there waving at ships. Could be 30 minutes, could be hours that they would do this. It was a full community experience. Meanwhile, today, we can't stand in a grocery line for more than 30 seconds without checking our phones. Basically, I aspire to have enough space in my life to develop rituals as simple as standing by the harbor every day and wave at passing ships. Okay, final thoughts. Yeah, I think I made this video because, you know, there's so many horrible things going on in the world right now. I actually feel like whenever I put out a video, it's already outdated because there's so many like unprecedented things going on. So this video was almost like a grounding experience for me. With that, there's so much that's been taken away from this generation that the only thing we can actively do in our day-to-day lives is choose the small human things that bring meaning and connection to our life. I want to encourage you to organize a dinner with friends, go to a local event in your city, or just go for a walk and enjoy the beautiful spring weather while we have it. But that is all I have for you today. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't, if you like video essays. Also check out the merch. All the proceeds go to the Essay Foundation. And yeah, I wish you a week where you chill. Just let's chill out a little bit. Bye.